Hi out there, this is Steve Heiser from Micflus. We will be starting our live stream here in a few minutes. Just wanted to let you know that we will be getting going here, and if you do have any questions online, we can take those via the chat interface on the live stream. Thanks very much. We'll be getting started here in a few minutes. Hi, Aaron. We do have some handouts. Morning. Yeah, I know. It's a constant whenever we have anything like this. Hi, Jackie. We do have some slides up in the front there too, if you wanted to. We have a few more people than last time.
Just the two of you?
Yeah, but I try to promote it a little bit more through email, so.
Yeah, and I think you'll have a lot of people following on your live
Yeah,
stream too.
right.
So how is it that someone was able to move my file?
It's easy enough to just copy and move it if people need like a larger file, but I didn't think ours was that, yeah, or that necessary to move it, so it's unusual.
So I really panicked, like, oh, did I accidentally delete it when I closed out?
Yeah, yeah. We don't use like ownership of files, so it's, some systems do that, but it's such a headache to manage, and then people get locked out, and it's just easier to open them all up. Kathy has talked to me about ownership of review files and things like that before, so. One more possible. Okay. Thanks, Bruce. We'll just give them a few more minutes to come in. By the way, if you want to have coffee, we have a Keurig machine in the corner, so feel free to take as much coffee as you like. We have plenty of water and coffee, so. designated driver going to be showing up as well? Okay. Oh, okay. Gotcha. All right. Sure, I think. All right, thank you. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started with the training here. My name is Steve Heiser. I'm the Library Systems Administrator for MCFLS. So we're doing the training live in person here at the MCFLS offices, and we're also streaming this online. The YouTube channel is MCFLS1, MCFLS1. So in the future, if you wanted to go find this recorded session, you can go to our YouTube channel and find it. We just did a Create List session. It's up there right now, so if you wanted to take a look at that, that was more of an intro course. The way we're going to handle questions is we'll do normal questions here in person, and at the end of the session, I will review the online chat. There's a chat interface for the YouTube stream, and people can ask their questions via that, and then we'll address those at the end of the session. Today we're going to be talking about advanced Create Lists and Sierra statistics. There's a natural divide between both of those topics. So we're going to talk about advanced Create Lists first, and then we'll have a break of about 10 to 15 minutes, give you time to clear your brain a little bit. And we will then talk about Sierra statistics after that. So that's kind of how it's going to work today as far as just the housekeeping goes. So let's go take a look at our agenda. We're going to take a look at advanced Create Lists, and this presupposes that you've had some experience using Create Lists in some capacity. I'm assuming that people here have dealt with Create Lists or done some work with it, so I think that's the case. These are some of the things we're just not able to cover in the introduction course, and that is some of the index searching, Boolean searching, advanced keyword searching, and some of the interfaces that we just recently got as part of Sierra and some of the recent releases. And then we're going to spend some time, significant amount of time, with what I call playing with matches. It's actually a session that was done for many years now at the National IUG conference, dealing with regular expressions and Create Lists. I deal with regular expressions a lot, and it's a really powerful matching tool. So you're matching patterns within your database, and you can use that with Create Lists to a limited extent. It's not as good as some of the regular expression functions that I've worked with in the past, but it is powerful enough to be useful for these purposes for Create Lists. So we'll spend a lot of time talking about that, getting you familiar with some of the coding and things that you need to do, be aware with, and hopefully this will be helpful for you. Okay, so what we're going to do first is talk about index searching, and we'll take a look at how you can perform this in Create Lists. With index searching, you can search any index field based on the stored record type, the bib, item, or patron. Honestly, I don't use this quite as much because you can do a lot more with some of just the regular searching using the criteria statements. But it is quicker. You can get a lot more quicker results based on the fact that you're searching an index versus searching all the fields within a Create List search, a usual Create List search. And it's great for ranges of numbers. But it's really not that useful unless you're searching an index is going to have the information that you want. Call number index is really good for stuff like that. So if you're doing a call number search, that's very useful. So I'm going to just escape out of here. Open up Sierra here. Sorry, I wish I had done this before. But I'll be honest, I don't use the index searching very often. Has anyone actually tried that or actually looked at it? it's one of those things you just kind of gloss over. It's just, there are 4 different options in that area. One is the range search, which you know is searching the entire database. The other is the review file, so you're searching off of a review file. And then you have these other 2, the index and the keyword searching, which are basically kind of afterthoughts within, as far as I'm concerned, with some of this. But there's some useful ways that you can use them. So if we go to search records here, I'm just going to choose an open file here. The way this works is that your stored record type will determine what kind of fields that you can search off of. So if you've got, for example, an item stored record type and you choose index, then it's going to present you with indexes that are related to or can be searched off of this field. So you have a lot of bibliographic level information that you can search off of. The barcode, though, is also part of this, as well as a call number. So if you wanted to do a quick search for, I don't know, well, so your call number range, and normally what people tend to do is put that .999 at the back. But if I wanted to limit this to item loc has 37, just say, well, looking at the Mitchell Street branch, that's a real easy way to just get a call number range. Now the fact that I put a criteria statement in there is probably not helping this. Okay, so that came back relatively quickly. So if we take a look at 3100, we had 3,100 results here. As you can tell, the Mitchell Street location was used, and this call number is within that 900 range. So it's just an example of how you might be able to use that. Okay, what I find more interesting to use is the keyword searching with create lists. So you can use Boolean operators with this. It's using the exact same search algorithm and search function as Encore. So, and it's generally, what you're doing is you're searching on bib level information. So like information within bib records. You really can't use it with any kind of item level information, but you can do some fairly advanced things with it. So you can use all these Boolean operators such as and, or, and not. We'll just try a couple of these. Okay, we'll keep it at bib record. And then go to advanced. And all you have here is just a large, it's almost like the Encore search interface where you have a one level advanced search box, and then you can pull in all kinds of different operators and commands to make your search work. So if we wanted to do a Patterson and Alex Cross search and just hit search. Hopefully it should come back much more quickly because we're not doing any kind of limits. It might surpass our 5,000 record limit though. Okay, so it came back with 164 bib records that match that. And what you're dealing with here when you do that type of search is it's looking for information in 4 areas generally: author, title, subject, and note. because that's generally what the keyword index is made up of. So if we look at this, this is a Kiss the Girls video recording. If we look at the bibliographic record, there's a note field with the word Patterson in it, and Alex Cross is also in a note field. So that's why this particular title came up, even though it's not in the title or the author field. It is in a added author, so it would have come up even if James Patterson was not in a note field. But that's generally how it would work. And that's just a very simple search. So if we go back into this again, let's see, we'll go here, go advanced. You can use all these different Boolean operators, and you can use the shortcut, which is the ampersand, to join those two together. You can use the shortcut, which is the pipe delimiter for or, and then the not shortcut, which is the and exclamation point. So like bridge and music, bridge and not music, Mercury and not planet. So let's just try that, bridge, using the shortcut. This doesn't mean everything that you're going to find is going to be unrelated to music, but talking about bridges. But you have far more likelihood of it not being in there. So it's not a perfect solution, but it can help you narrow down searches if you're looking at bibliographic level information. Okay, so we found 980 of these records. If we take a look at some of these. Treasury of Songs for Children. Let's just take a look at the bib to see what they came up with. So I'm sure there's some kind of reference to bridge in here somewhere, but I'm not going to look for it. But you can tell, I mean, these do have bridge and not music. So music is here in a 520, so I wonder why that's coming up. Let's take a look at another one. I don't know if anyone can see the bridge in any of these. Yeah, Love Can Build a Bridge right here. So it's just another way in which you can search the database, particularly if you're just looking for bibliographic level information. Okay, let's go back to our slides. Okay, so also with regard to keyword searching, you can use adjacency commands to get more out of your searches. So the system, Sierra, puts an and between each word in a search expression. So, and this goes for Encore as well. So if you're searching for player piano and piano player, you'll get identical results. And I did this the other day just to test it out again, and I got like 210 results for both, and they were identical because they're basically a player and piano type search when you're applying it to the database. When you enclose the terms and quotation marks, it forces an exact match, so it's a completely different search at that point. You're forcing it to do the sequence that you're putting it in and viewing it as it's a unique expression, or the sequence matters basically when you put in that those quotation marks, and you'll get different results based on that. Let's just take a quick look at that. So it's, first of all, let's just do piano player. Okay, so we got 211 results based on that. If we do another search, this time using quotation marks, okay, we only got 50. So it weeded down that considerably, as you might expect, because it's, instead of doing an and player piano, piano player, it's looking specifically for that phrase, so it's going to narrow down your search results. Okay, so you can also combine Boolean operators together. You can use, and some of the examples here are pretty basic. Industry, and Milwaukee or Madison. As you might expect, putting those phrases, Milwaukee and Madison, together in parentheses with an or combines those two as a search first, and then ands it to the word industry and gives you a more correct search. If you didn't put those parentheses around there, you would end up with industry and Milwaukee, and then everything with Madison attached to it. So it would not give you what you wanted. You know, you're going to have a lot of garbage in your search results. So there's a couple of other examples here I just wanted to let you know about. And then at the very bottom here, Patterson and Alex Cross versus Patterson and Alex Cross. I mean, those two are pretty different searches. You're looking for, in the first one, or the second one, it's a more unique search or a more exact search than the first one. Because those two words, Alex Cross in the first, in parentheses, can be in any order. So that's naturally going to be a larger search if it actually works out that way. Okay. So wildcards. In this keyword searching system that we have, the question mark can represent any single character in the specific position in the word. So it's only good for a specific single character. So Anderson would find, with the question mark, would find both iterations of Anderson with the O and then the E. But you do have to have at least two characters at the front of your search before that can work. So if we do, let's just go back here and do a quick search. It's interesting that these searches, they don't accumulate records gradually. It's like all at once. It's like it's performing a search against the database, putting the records together, and then it just pops it right in there. Okay, while that's running, I'm going to go ahead and let's take a look at the other wildcard character, which is the star. This can represent up to 50 non-space characters. So the example here uses enter with the asterisk, and this is pretty common within all kinds of computer systems. The asterisk is usually a wildcard character of some sort. So that can be used to find any number of possibilities or variations on after that initial 5 characters or so. So yeah, that one will take a while. So let's just take a look and see if we got any. No, this is still working. I wonder if that, just the wildcard character just takes a little bit longer for it to perform the search. Okay, let's go back here. You can also use a proximity operator that allows you to search for terms within so many words of each other. So you could use fractal geometry, put those 2 terms within quotations, use that symbol, I don't know what they call that, the squiggly line symbol, and the number after that determines how many words fractal and geometry have to be within each other in order for the search results to pull that record up. We use Hillary Clinton because her name is often used with Hillary Rodham Clinton. So there may be some titles that use just the 2 words, but there may be others that need that use Hillary Rodham Clinton, and those would then be found within the same search results. This also, it doesn't matter the order, I don't believe, so they could be transposed in this case. As long as they're within, in the second example, as long as they're within 3 words of each other, they'll be found within the search. Let's go back to our, this one is still working, so I'm going to cancel that. Okay, so let's try this one. Okay, so this one found 388 records, so if we just take a look at that. First one's a pretty good example. This came from the title, and it's Hillary Rodham Clinton. And it also probably would have been found in this subject field as well, Clinton, Hillary Rodham. So that it gives you an example where that might be useful, or using with variations that you might need to use to pull information up. Let's take a look at another one here. Yeah, another one here. So we didn't put Rodham in at all. It just found it because it found Hillary and Clinton within that 3-word space. And you gotta be careful. You don't want it too wide, or else your search results aren't going to be very useful. Okay, so let's go back here. Okay, so, and one last thing, we got a couple more things I wanted to talk about with regard to keyword searching. All of these characters that you see here on your screen and also in the handout, these are all converted to spaces when you search them. So if you include them in your search results, they're just going to be converted to spaces anyway. So you may as well just leave them out. Or, just be aware of the fact that those are going to be converted. And the other thing that is really good about keyword searching against create lists is that Innovative does provide slices of the keyword index. It's similar to, identical to what is being used in Encore. When you want to do an advanced search within Encore, you can preface the author, title, or subject, or note field with that letter that you see on the screen, followed by a colon, and it will just look at that slice of the keyword index that includes author information for Twain, for example, and Sawyer in the title slice. It's not an index per se. It's the keyword index is the index. It's just that there are slices of that keyword index that include phrases that are attached to author, title, subject, or note. I don't know if does that make sense? It's a little difficult, but it's not a strict index like we're used to using within Sierra, where you have a title index. It's very, it's very straightforward as to how to use that title index. This is a little bit more gray, but it is using the same type of search as Encore. So if you're used to using that, you can do that. So if we go back to our search parameters here, what did I do here? Okay, so this is our Anderson search. I'm just going to empty that. Okay. So I can use that same type of search parameters. Let's use, Sawyer, just to be consistent. So that's going to be searching the author slice for Twain and the title slice for Sawyer. And we'll give that a few seconds just to see how it works out. Okay, so we've got 110 records that pop up. Let's take a look at those to see what we have. Tom Sawyer by Mark Twain. Okay, so Tom Sawyer is in the title, and an added author, we see the word Twain up here. So that's why those are, this record appeared in our search results, is because of that. So it's a real easy way to, if you need a quick, an easy way to do a keyword search and narrow it effectively by author, title, or subject, or note field, you can do that within the keyword search index. And it might be a little quicker. This is a lot more pronounced back in the day. I keep saying this like I've been here for 30 years. But back when I started, it took like a regular create list search 5 hours to run, something like that. And it would take you that long just to do a regular item level search, especially if you're searching the entire database. This benefit of using the keyword searching may not be as pronounced as it was in the past because it was a lot quicker back then. Instead of 5 hours, you may have to wait 10 minutes or something like that. But your search had to be either had to be in an index, the keyword index, or one of those other index fields that we looked at before. So if it was indexed, you were golden. If it wasn't, it had to loop through all of the information through each record, like in a regular create list search we do nowadays. And it would just take so much longer to do that because the information was not indexed. So you're living in the golden age of quick searches. You don't even think twice about it, which is great. It's the way it should be. So anyway, okay. Let's go back. I want to talk a little bit about some of the new things that are new things that we have gotten with Sierra within the past couple of years. These are two different interfaces. We have 3 of them available. One is the classic interface, which you are probably all used to using. The enhanced interface, which I think they're trying to get us to move to. I haven't latched onto that one quite as well. And then you have the JSON, which scares people like even me to using. So let's take a look at that. Okay, so we're going to do our test search here. You have your classic where you enter your search criteria in rows here, which I think is nice, and it's because I grew up with it and I know what it looks like. The enhanced is supposed to be a much more user-friendly interface. That's what the manual describes it as. I'm not buying that as much. But you can use some of the same types of functions here as you would in the classic search. So if I wanted to select the type of information, or I'm sorry, the type of record, I could just double click on it. I can use the arrow keys up and down if I wanted to do a search here. Oops. Or just type in the number because I apparently can't deal with that. Then you select your operator. Again, you can use the up and down arrow keys. And let's just use 37 since I was just at Mitchell Street. The difference between, there's really two main differences because the enhanced search uses something called an in operator. And I've really yet to use that effectively within a search. Let's just run this first so we can just get a, that's going to fill up in no time. Okay, so let's just take a look at this search here. Okay, so I've pulled in the search parameters that we used before. If I go to classic, it's going to look the same here. And if I go to advanced, or enhanced, I should say, it's going to give you the same information. The only difference is that there is another operator in here called in. Let's see if I can get this to work here. Okay. I think this what allows you to do is to search on multiple fields within. This is a difficult one because I don't use it as much. Let me get back to that on this one. The one thing I know that you can do with this that's different, there's this operator in, and then there is, if we go back to our PowerPoint slides, you can actually search for multiple terms for the same target record type and field. So, for example, you can find all the titles that contain Moby Dick and Melville in any order in the same note field, which you can't do within the typical classic crate lists. So that's one example where you might want to use that if you're looking for all these terms within the same note field, because they could be there but within different note fields. And the other interface that I wanted to show you was the JSON search interface. So I use JSON a lot in other areas of MCFLIS, just not with create lists at all. So it's very scary, but it's basically, it's using a name value pair format to organize the information and create the search. So I'll give you an example of what that looks like. If we just take a look at this one here. Okay, just using this as an example, item loc has 37. If we go back to classic, that looks pretty much the way you would expect. We have our enhanced version, and then if you go to the JSON version, that's what that looks like. So needless to say, it's not used very often because trying to work with this type of interface is much more cumbersome and difficult for most staff to deal with. What you can do, though, is cut and paste this. So if you wanted to copy this, you just do Control C to copy after you selected it. You can actually share this search with another person, either within Mixless or outside of the system entirely. So say someone you know in Indian Head or Northern Waters, somebody that you met at a conference wants to know how you did a search. You can pull this into the JSON mode, cut and paste it into a file, and then they can actually load it. There's a couple of buttons here at the bottom of the screen where it says Load JSON. You can click on that and then load the file directly into Sierra and then run it. So all Sierra, regardless of the descriptions of the codes, use the same backbone. So all these references to ID, expression, the operands, all that stuff is identical across all Sierra systems, and you should be able to share that information with anybody across Sierra land, or whatever you want to call it. So I think that's really the key for the JSON. Not many people I know write in JSON. It's more about just sharing the information across systems. It's just an easier way to do that. Okay, so here's another example. This is what the manual calls a simple search for birds of America. And just to let you know, there are two things going on within these JSON searches. Even if you don't remember a thing about this after the session, there's two things that are going on. One is the target. So you're focusing on the record and the tag, the field tag would be T for title. So that's what your area of the database that you're focusing on. And then you're applying that expression, Birds of America, against that target, and then that will return your search results. So that might be good for like a bar conversation or something. Did you know about this? Other than that, don't worry about it. Okay. So my favorite part of this session is playing with matches. Richard Jackson's a guy that has been doing this at national IEG conferences for many years, at least 10 years plus. And it's great. They started introducing regular expressions into Sierra probably about that same time, about 10 years ago. Create Lists uses a limited number of POSIX regular expressions to locate records. Those of you who are not familiar with regular expressions, they're used all the time within coding and programming to really get granular and find specific pieces of information that match criteria that they're after. And we'll look at a couple of examples of that. So it's like a matching function that you'll see in a lot of programming. That there's a limited number of those that we can use, and very simple ones that are used across different programming languages that we'll talk about here. So it's essentially a different language that has characters with special attributes that's assigned to them. And we'll go over those, each of those in the next few slides here. So the most common symbol that we use within regular expressions is the dot. And it looks unassuming right there, but it's probably the most powerful regular expression because it's used in just about everything. It's combined with a number of other characters to be pretty powerful. So it just matches any single character. So C.T matches cat or cot. And it's just, it's kind of functions similarly to that question mark that we looked at a few times ago, a few slides ago, but it's a little bit more powerful. When you combine characters within these brackets, this is in the second row, that matches any single character. So it's not, when you're looking at these examples where it says AIE, it's not going to match AIE as a set. It's going to match either A or I or E as a single character. The next example is another good one because that's used often. A to Z, 0 through 9, will match any single letter or digit. Does that make sense? And you can combine these. I'll show you how they look within a create list search. So the second row and the third row are almost polar opposites of each other. This, when you put that caret symbol, that's that second symbol or character in the code there, it matches any single character that is not in that class. So if you put that caret in front of that character class, it's going to not match a digit or a letter. So, but it's just that single letter, whatever position that is in the field. The plus and the star are similar, but not exactly the same. So the plus will match when the preceding character or group of characters occurs one or more times. An asterisk is 0 or more times. So you'll see the difference there in these examples. 0 plus 523 will match 0, 523, whereas 0 asterisk will match 523. So it doesn't have to have that 0 in front of it in order to produce a match. You will find dot star, if you're looking at regex, dot star is probably the most commonly used regular expression set together because the dot is any character and the star is infinite beyond that. So you'll see it for, I'll give you a couple of examples that we'll look at, but it's great for the end of a string. So I want to find anything that starts with a call number 999 dot star. I don't care what's beyond that. As long as it starts with 999, it doesn't matter. So that's used quite a bit in regular expressions. You'll see that. All this stuff looks like gobbledygook when it's on a screen, but when you break it down piece by piece, it's actually very easy to break it down. I shouldn't say that. It's not easy. So there's a couple of other things that you can use with other codes that you can use with regular expressions. You can use that character class we talked about before with a number in these curly Q brackets. I don't know what you call those things. But it's what that designates is that in the example here, if you put that 4 in the curly Q brackets, it will match a string of 4 numbers. So it's just replicating the same character class. So it's going to look for a set of 4 numbers. If you change that to, say, 2, 3, it will match either 2 numbers or 3 numbers. So you can use that. That's a very powerful thing to do as well. In case you're looking for a string that may be two numbers or 3 numbers, you can put those together. And it's not just numbers. It could be letters. It could be certain strings that you want to look for. The last 2 here are really important because they can generally are going to start out your regular expression. The first is that caret. Remember, we used that to negate the character class in the previous slide. When you use it outside of those brackets, it's actually designating the start of the field. So, and it's important to note that the fields, the way that they start, especially for mark fields, is the start of the mark tag. It's not the contents of the field itself. So if you're looking for a call number, item call number, that's an 082 tag, you would start the starting position is 0. 082 would be the start of that field, and then you're including the indicators after that. So you have to be careful when you're using this. I'll show you a couple tricks that you can use to mitigate that somewhat. End of the field position is the opposite of the caret. That is the $sign that you put in there. So our example here is pretty good. .* fiction will match any string ending with fiction. I don't care what's in front of it. As long as it ends with fiction, I will find it using this particular search. Okay. So this might be one example you could use. Let's go back to our create list so I can show you where it's actually present. Okay, so I'm going to wipe this out. Okay, so it is a condition. It's not anything other than that. You can create your search terms as you would normally. So if you go to item, just use call number. And then our condition, that letter that we use is R for matches. And that's where you would use these regular expressions. And then it's just a plain text field. And this is where you construct your search. So if I wanted to find all my fiction call numbers that just have the letter F, I don't want anything else, just want the letter F, and they're indexed using that subfield F, I would start with the character, the caret character, to indicate the start of the field. Then I would put my subfield F. These aren't special characters. These are just regular plain text characters. And then another F to indicate the actual call number, the content of the call number. Subfield F, for those of you who don't know, is a subfield that takes the call number out of the call number index. So it's not a Dewey. Dewey is always in subfield A, and it's indexed within that call number index. Subfield F takes that fiction call number out because so many people use F for everything, or fiction, or mystery. All those don't need to be indexed. They would just come up with the same information each time. So subfield F is really good, is used for fiction. That's generally how it's done. What's really great about this search term, and the only way I could do this search, is by putting that $sign at the very end here. So that encloses my search to only find the F and not fiction or fic, so that's the only way you could do it. You could use starts with, which is another condition. It's using that regular expression, but it would not be as granular as this type of search that you could use. Does that make sense? Okay. So let's just try this. Oops. Okay. And you'll notice as soon as I tab out of there, it converts all my characters to lowercase. So it's case insensitive at this point. So that might be something you might want to consider when you're doing these searches. Okay, so if we do this type of search, I'm sure this will fill up quickly. Yeah, so the question was, does it matter what search, like what type of slice of the index or the database that you're looking at. So you can use this within range, you can use this with the review files. You could even use this with an index and advanced searching. So it's available as a condition for every search that you want to do. Okay, so this is going to take a while. So this is going to take a little bit longer because of the regular expressions involved, but we can come back and visit this. I'll give you a few more examples, and we might try these just to see how it looks. Okay, so this is the search that we just did. This is on your slides. Regular expressions in general are great for finding errors in coding, and we'll give you a few examples of that. This first example is great. If you're familiar with bibliographic fixed field information, there's a country code that comes with every bib record, and it's almost impossible to search for those unless you're doing a specific code. They're all 3 characters, and the only way to really find them would be using a search like this: country matches ... Doesn't matter what 2 characters precede the code, as long as they end with a U, this search will find it. And there may be multiple countries that end with U. You don't care what they are. As long as you find those and put them on a list, this will find it. Example 2 here, use of a character class. So you may have situations where you may need to find gray versus Gray versus Grey, and you can put those in a character class and then find those within Sierra. The third example is really good for errors in coding, because this is pretty much, I've seen this happen before. This isn't supposed to happen. You're not supposed to have more than one of a subfield within a specific field. So the mark tag 245 is title, and it's usually the subtitle is B, I believe. There should only be one in a record, but if you ran this against the database, it would find the errors in coding that you could then correct manually and just fix them. So that's a type of thing that you can do with this. It's pretty powerful. And I've actually done this before. I think we've done subfield B, or not so much C, but subfield B, like pull them out, fix them, either change them to a different subfield, or get rid of the subfield altogether if it's a duplicate. So let's go back to our other search here and see what we're up to. Okay, so nothing came up here. Let's see, what did I do wrong? Let's try this one more time. We have a couple more examples to look at. Maybe I didn't search the right stored record type. That's not good. Okay, so we use the caret. Let's see if there's another way. Hopefully this works. Okay, you can use this to make this a lot easier. If you use the exclamation point for the field, in some cases it will allow you to choose the mark tag associated with the record, the stored record type. So item, mark tag. And if you look at that little box, it shows that the T's indicate the tag number, the I's indicate the indicators, and then the S's indicate subfields that you can also search on. So if I wanted to limit this to 082, I could do subfield F. Oops. It's not matching here. Hold on a sec. Let's just do this. Okay. Mark tag 082. I'm not going to use a subfield here. So we're just looking at that 082 field. Okay, we need to put this here. Oops. Okay, let's give this one more try. Go back to our slides here. Okay, so we got two more examples I wanted to show you. Example 4 would allow you to find bad mat type codes. This is probably not an exhaustive list of all of our mat types, but you could run this against your section of the database, say like at Greendale or wherever, and find instances where the bib records don't have valid mat type codes. But this would find everything. So it would find everything that's not a valid mat type code included in there. So you can see where that negated character class comes in. So everything in there would not be found as part of your search. And then the last one is the one we're using here. Find call numbers only with the letter F, not case sensitive. Let's take a quick look and see what we have. Okay, so of course that came up with everything. Let's take a look at some of these records. Okay, this doesn't look like it's right. Yeah, this isn't right. This is one of those things where you know something's totally screwed up within your search results, and you just got to start over and try to recreate the wheel. So, but in that case, what we'd do is just do a search records, use existing search, and then I could use the exact same search I was just using, pulls it right back in. Okay. While I'm trying to figure out what happened here, we're going to take a break. So it is 10 o'clock right now. Let's come back here about 10:15. If you need to use the bathrooms, there are keys on the desk outside as you come in. And the bathroom is down the hall. I think it's like right by the elevator if you're interested in that. So let's take a break and we'll come back at 10:15.
We went to school together. And we're
I have to work that Saturday, so we're gonna fly Wednesday night and come back Friday night. Not work on Saturday. Jean's birthday is. Wanna know something that sucks? Both my dad's birthdays are in November and it's
Okay, I think we're going to get started again. So I figured out what I did wrong. Always good to see how that works. Oops. I have some feedback going on.
I know.
Okay. I think that might solve it. Wonderful streaming. We'll just edit that out anyway, so it's no problem. Okay, so returning now to our training, I discovered what I had done wrong in my previous search here for the fiction call numbers, and I wanted to show you what I did. So if I click on Show Info, here's the search that I actually did. I had forgotten, hopefully you guys can see this, but it starts, I had forgotten that because we are using mark tags, you have to indicate the tag number that you're searching off of. If it's just a non-mark field, then it doesn't matter. So stuff like barcode, anything in an item record except for call number, you don't have to worry about the tag numbers. However, if you're using a tag number like we do for all of our call numbers, you have to include that. So in our case here, we have a caret indicating beginning of the field, 082, which is the mark tag we use always for our call numbers. We include 2 dots to indicate the indicators, and those can be blank or indicate a number or other character. So that it's caret 082 ... and then we put in our fiction call number designation. So subfield F for the content, the value of the call number, and then the $sign. So that's your entire field there. Does that make sense to everybody? Or does anyone, it looks like a bunch of gobbledygook until you figure out what those characters mean, and then it makes a little bit more sense. So let's take a look at some of these records just to verify. I didn't really limit this to any library collections, so there's a ton of them, and they filled up the 5,000 review file pretty quickly. Let's take a look at this one. There you go, 082 subfield F. There's nothing outside of that. So that's all you have in that particular field. And I'm not gonna, well, I'll take a look at another one just to be risky. And there's another one. So it's a 082 subfield F. And that's really the only way you could get that type of granularity, Because if you use starts with condition, it's going to find F, it's going to find fic, it's going to find fiction, Fred, whatever. It's going to find it all within that subfield F.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So, like, if you were looking for fiction books, but you were looking for like 2000 on,
Sure.
how would you add that on?
Sure. So if you wanted to do that, the question was if you wanted to look for, add like a publishing date. In addition to that, let's just try it. We can do it really quickly. I'll show you another little hint that I use, or trick that I use. We'll go to search records. We'll put in we'll just use our existing search. It's 103, I believe. Okay, so there's our call number search. If I wanted to add, say, a publishing date limiter on this, I could just append a line, use the bib type, and then go to my field list, and I'll show you a field that I use all the time for this type of stuff. And I believe it's in the mark 2008, and it's date 1. Now, it's not always the case where you could use this and be like really sure that your publication date's going to be in here, but for the vast majority of new materials, the mark record comes over from OCLC with a date 1 specification in it, which indicates publication date. Otherwise, you got to pull stuff from the 240, what is it, the 260 description, and that's got C's in it, it's got all kinds of goofy date. This is like a pure year, and you can just use that as your field that you're going to search off of. So you could use date or date 1 greater than, let's just say 2010 or 2009, and see what that brings up here. I use this for the date 1 field is used for the new materials list, and that pulls that publication date from there. So I'm pretty confident almost all of those fields are populated. Now the older materials, I'm not sure. There could be some that do and some that don't. Let's just take a look at this, show these records here. Watch, I'll be totally wrong here. All right, so our fiction call number is here. If we go to view or edit, and we look at, what is it, the 008? We have date 1 in here. Oh, what is that? That does not look like a date. Let's try another one. Okay, fiction call number, edit. I'm not sure what is going on here. That doesn't look like a date either. I wonder if they're just hidden somehow. I'm not sure. Now, these are fairly old records, so I'm wondering if we just looked at a later record that might have better luck. Okay, so this is a fiction call number. And let's see, that looks like 1914. No, it's just a UUU. Okay, well, the heck with that, that search. I'm going to let this search run and see if we can find a record that I can actually use. Oh, this is our...
Did you just search with nonfiction columns?
Yes,
Yeah.
right. So you could do, in that case, you wouldn't have to worry about subfield F. You could just say matches, and you could use those character classes. So you could put whatever range you want, 7-9, say if we're looking for the 700s to the 900s, and just put a dot star after it. So just take a look at this. I'll give you an example to look at. So let's just say item call number matches We have to do our caret 082 ... So that's your like your standard prefix for your call numbers. And then you would do something like, let's just say you're looking for the 700s through the 900s. You could do bracket 7-9, and then that's only going to be one character. So it's going to be either 7, 8, or 9 to start. I don't care what the rest of the call number is. Put a dot star at the end of it, and you're done. You'll see dot stars at the end of a lot of regular expressions. It's just how they're used. You don't care what the end it looks like. You just want to find that 7, 8, or 9 start to your call number. So let's just try that and just take a quick search. Sorry that day one didn't work. I know it works because I use it all the time. Okay, so let's take a quick look at this. Okay, so that's an 833, pretty standard. And you could, add as many criteria as you wanted, to that in addition to the call number. So if you could use that as your call number range and then add additional things to it. You could look at, authors or, subjects might be another one that you would want to use. I don't know how you would use that generally. Would it be maybe a weeding report or something like that to just pull out stuff that may need to be removed from the collection? Wanted to show you one other example I just used this morning for regex, more of a practical thing. So Nancy upstairs in CCDM, and it was actually Joanne at Oak Creek that showed me this or told us about this. So some brown deer call numbers were including Dewey numbers in that subfield F that we just talked about, which is a no-go. You don't want those. And there you want those in subfield A so that they're indexed. So what we need to do is find a report or create a list of all those affected call numbers that had Dewey numbers in subfield F. So here's, if we do a show info on this, you'll see it's condition matches 082 ... our call number. Oops, that's not right. We were just looking at that. And that is not right either. Let's see, what am I doing wrong here? Yeah, that is not correct. Okay, that is the wrong list. Oh, here it is. It's 109. Gosh darn it. This so happened to use a file with almost the exact same number. Okay, so here's the list. We do a show info. I didn't put a start parameter in here. So that I didn't have to use that 082. It was just looking for that match or pattern anywhere within the call number field. And it found subfield F and a 0-9. So it's looking for a digit after subfield F. I don't care what it is. 1, 2, 5, 8, whatever, doesn't matter, with the dot star after it. And it will find it. And I've limited it also to brown deer items. So if we take a look at some of these records, here's a subfield F, 960. If I change that, and I will, pending Brian's approval at Brown Deer, change that subfield F, and actually I can just remove it, and it will treat it as subfield A, because it's always the first position of any tag. So it's just one example of a way in which you can find. I would never been able to find this otherwise, or it would have been. My brain doesn't work a different way. I'm always using these matches functions to find this type of stuff, and it's just an easy way if you know the code. I mean, you can see. I mean, the code is really easy to put together, and you can find stuff like this all the time and find your errors or find the things that you need to find. And it's not just item or bib records. You can use this for circulation. You can use this for any number of purposes. So. Yeah, 109. Yep. I suppose you might have an interest in looking at that. Yeah, in my case, I'm going to use a global update function and just wipe out the subfield F. Find subfield F and remove it. So if you need stuff like that done, just let me know and I can take care of it pretty easily rather than having you go through each record one by one. As long as we're pretty sure that it's in a list and the list is good, we should be fine. Okay, so I'm going to give you that, just an idea of what that looked like. Okay, so we're going to move on to statistics, and we're going to go back to our PowerPoint slides here. We're going to talk a little bit about statistics in Sierra, what it is and what it isn't, mostly, and walk you through the step of creating a query. It's pretty straightforward. It's not difficult, but there's a little odd things with Sierra statistics that you may need to be aware of to make it work. For basic stuff, it's pretty easy. You can work with results files and export the data. And usually what that means is you're exporting it to Excel. There's actually a button you can use to export to Excel directly. And then you can manage your save query. So we'll walk through all of that stuff step by step. So what does this look like? Okay. Now, back up a step. Okay. Let's take a look at statistics. So statistics is a function within Sierra. It's been there for a long time. Your list is going to look a little bit different than mine. If you don't see this and you want it, just let me know. I think many people have this. If you don't, but I can add it to your list. Okay, so statistics, it's really good for counting stuff, like counting particularly fixed field information. So how many DVDs do I have? How many of a certain mat type, or how many biblocks, are attached to these items I have within a list. And generally what you do is you create your list first, and then you pull it into this statistics function, and then it will generate statistics and give you reports based on that information within that review file. That's generally how it works. You can apply it to the entire database, but I wouldn't recommend it. I would probably get mad at you first and foremost, but it's not a big deal. It's really good for fixed field counts and periodic reports, and we'll talk about periodic reports in a sec. It also does crosstab reports, and we'll look at that as well. Those take a long time to run and are not advisable unless you really need it. But we'll take a look at one of those crosstab reports. And it's really only as good as the coding done by your staff. So it's not going to be perfect, but if you've got coding errors, it's going to show up in these reports because it's going to count all that stuff. But there's a lot of information here that might be useful for you, and some of the stuff that you may not even have thought of will come up within the reports. What it doesn't do circulation statistics. It's not meant to be that. It does provide information like total checkouts, current checkouts, any of those fixed field level information that's part of the item record you can get through statistics, but it's not going to give you like how many DVDs did I check out for October. It's not going to give you that type of information. That's what you use web management reports for. So it doesn't really do circulation statistics. Other than a few exceptions, it doesn't really give you statistics on variable field length information or variable length field information, except for call number and the order record paid field. So when we get into some of these results files, you'll notice that there's a reference to something called SCAT. That's a terrible name. But I guess it depends on where you're coming from, but it refers to something called the statistical call number table. And it's great for Dewey. So if you're looking for information on, so you've got a list of your entire collection, and you want to see how that's laid out by Dewey range, that's something you could get. However, it does not include any of your fiction call numbers, because everyone uses, our SCAT table is not very useful because of the fiction call numbers, is what it comes down to. Because everyone is using, various different types of fiction call number labels, like fiction, mystery, graphic novels. All that stuff is all over the map in our system, and it's not very useful. The statistical call number table was originally designed just for Dewey. And if your call number does not start with a 3-character prefix, it doesn't work. There's a system up north in Indian Head that has done all the work and worked with all their member libraries to get them on, use their fiction call numbers with a certain genre tag attached to it, like fic, MYS for mystery, or whatever, fiction call number designation. They've done that work, and their statistical call numbers, our table is better, but it's not perfect, and we just haven't done the work. It just would be so much time to get everybody on the same page. And there was a time in our system when no one would agree to do just about anything like that, so we just leave it as is. It's not as useful for us, but there are other software. I know Milwaukee uses Collection HQ. I don't know if they do call numbers or not. They do, okay. So that's a type, we have to go to like a third party to do that type of stuff for us. But just so you know that's part of this. So before we get into actually creating a report, I wanted to go review the screen here. This is probably the most confusing part of Sierra, because you're not sure where to start. You'll see on the side here, you have saved queries, and you have result files. So the saved queries is where you first enter, and the latest saved query is always going to be at the bottom. Is that the correct? Yeah, that's correct. So these are queries that have been saved to the database that you can run over and over and over again if you want to. And this is also the area where you would start a new query. So new query is kind of like your starting point for actually creating statistical report. The results files are not saved queries. What those are is, if we go to that, these are all the reports that have been run. These aren't queries, these are reports. So you can run a report without saving it, which is what I generally do. So I just ran a report this week for this session called Mitchell Street Items. And it's just gonna sit there until I get rid of it or it gets deleted. In general, we've got quite a few here. We probably should be deleting, but we're not in trouble of losing any space yet. So if you have reports up there, I generally don't touch them unless it's absolutely necessary to free up space. So you generally don't have to worry about it. Okay, so this is your results files. What you do here is you click on your result file and then click on View Report to actually get into the meat of the report, or View Query to see how the query was created. So this is just very basic information about how the report was put together. I generally don't look at it. Go back to the save queries. You can, if you have a query here that you've saved, you can edit it. You can run a save query by clicking on it and just clicking Run up here. think we can schedule these, so I would avoid that. We have not really even worked with that. There's a function or a feature of Sierra called scheduler that will run, like create lists on a schedule. Well, we haven't bought it yet, but it's been out there for a while. Is there any interest in that? Maybe having a scheduler type function with create lists? Just curious. Okay. Maybe we can use some money for that. But I automate a lot of stuff outside of this, so it's not something that's real of interest to me at the moment. But anyway, let's get into creating a new query step by step. So the new query button is up here at the top. What you do is click on that, and it will bring up this lovely window, which is confusing to a lot of people. So the save query name, we can just call it Mitchell Street, because what we're looking at, I created a list called Mitchell Street items added October 2017. And I just did that, I think, yesterday. It doesn't have all of October, but most of it. And you can just name this anything you want. I should probably put an October in front of that. What I generally do is after I name it, I just use this copy button, and all it does, its one and only function is to copy line 1 to line 2, and that's all it does. Probably my favorite button in all of Sierra. And then what you do is you find your review file. So you can use all of these different functions against the database to start your report. But generally, I recommend you start with a review file. And I'm going to try to find this guy. Maybe I might have to go back out and find it. It was Mitchell Street items. Used to be much easier when you can just hit the M key and find Mitchell Street. Okay, I'm going to go back out. Sorry. Mitchell Street, where are you? Okay. Oh, here we go. 128. Sorry about that. Okay, use my favorite button again. And then we're going to type in, was it 128? Okay. So these were items at the time that I ran the search that were added by Mitchell Street. So they have the Mitchell Street location code attached to them. Okay, so if you wanted to do a basic search, you can, let's see here. Okay, so yeah, you could just leave it as is here and just leave it at field statistics, which is just basically going to give you a basic report counts of all the number of codes and associated with that those items. So how many are DVDs? How many are checked out? How many use a certain loan rule? That type of thing. Because we use that law of one hop, and we'll go back to our PowerPoint here, you can search off of different information associated with those records. So because I've got items for Mitchell Street, I could get information off patrons linked to those items, or bibliographic information linked to those items, in addition to the information about the item itself. Does that make sense? So if I could run a report and get bibliographic level information for the fixed field, like what languages were used. So if you wanted a breakdown of Spanish versus English, which in Mitchell Street's case would actually be useful, how much were added for that, for October, you could get information off the bibliographic record if we wanted to do that. Okay. And so we have options to do that if we wanted to. With order records, you can also base the report on invoice or paid dates. So you have to choose one, but you can use either one of those as well. Okay, so as I mentioned before, the field stats are the most common. It's the number of times a code is present in the record set. The periodic report limits the query to those records in which the selected date field, for example, created date, due date, etc., falls between a specified range of years, quarters, or months. So I think it's really good in an acquisitions type setting to find out how much, in your case, Aaron, how many times or how much was paid within a certain range of dates. And I know Virginia uses that on occasion. A couple of other examples may be how many patrons have an expiration date next month. You could run that against the entire database. And then we also have, as an option for the query type, crosstab. So if I click on crosstab, I can choose, because I'm looking at items, I can choose a vertical, which would be the rows, right? No, vertical would be the columns. So I can choose my columns, what field I want to base this information on. So if I wanted to report by eye level, or let's use the patrons. That's a better one. So as soon as I change that, my field options change here for the crosstab. So if I wanted to do a p-type by region report, I could do that. And that would just be a crosstab where the columns are p-types and the rows are the regions. And this, because we're looking at patron information on an item review file, it would be patrons with those items checked out. So that's their connection to that item, is that they're checked out to them. I'm not sure how useful that would be, but that you can kind of see where we would be going with that. Let's go back to the items here. Okay, sorry I skipped over this part before. So with the periodic report, you choose the date field. You choose the years, quarters, months, dates. So, and then you choose that date field you want to look at. So if it might, in this case, might be due date, and you're looking at years. So if you start with years and you start with 2015, and I guess it would be two. Your starting year would be 2015. You're looking at years, so your breakdown in your report would be by year rather than say quarter or month or day. So that's how that's supposed to work. Fiscal or calendar year does not matter in our case because in almost everybody's setup here, we're all on fiscal and calendar year is pretty much the same, identical. Okay, so I'm going to go back to field statistics. The other thing that I wanted to point out to you is a couple things. Fastest accumulation means that it's not going to update you with the number of records added to the report. It's just going to give you everything all at once at the end. So it just saves on a little bit of memory for Sierra to be able to produce the report quicker. And then splitting multi is interesting. So if we do a bibliographic report, all of a sudden you'll see split multi appear. It's not as useful for most folks, but what we use it for, or we used to use it for, was dealing with bibliographic locations and also fund codes. So you could use this for fund codes where you want to split those up and count those individually so that you may have total number of records might be 747, but your total might be more than that because multiple bib locations can have attachments to the same bibliographic record. So you can have, it's like a many-to-one relationship, and that's how we deal with counting titles added for a year, is splitting this up by multi. So each bib location is counted once, rather than one bib record. You may have several attached to, several bib locations attached to a bib. So I don't know if that makes any sense, but it's not used very often, but for fun codes, I think it might be useful. Order records can also be further subdivided to determine the cost of each copy or each volume if it's a set. Okay, so I'm going to go back to running this. Well, actually I'm going to run this as a bib report because I wanted to see what that language breakdown is. I'm not going to split multi, I don't care about that. So down here I can save the query if I want to. And that would come up in that list that we saw originally. Then we could schedule the query. I'm not going to do that right now. Or run it. And this is always what I end up choosing down here. Okay, so it says you have not set it up. You can always recreate it at a later time. So we just click on OK. And what will happen is it will appear down here at the end of our report list. While that's running, let's take a look at the report I ran before. This was an item level report. And to get in here, what you need to do is click on View Report. And the way this is broken down is that there's a report frame on the far left-hand side that is broken down by normally fixed field information. So each of these indicates a fixed length field for the most part. So we have copy numbers. The code is 1, so it means copy number 1, 743, and then copy 2 was number 4. But for each one of these reports, you have a lot of information on that just comes with it automatically, like the price field, number of renewals, overdue. Some of this stuff is not very useful. Others might be like total checkouts, total renewals, year-to-date circ, and then last year's circ. Those year-to-date circ and last year's circ numbers are just updated at the beginning of the year, they're transferred from last year-to-date circ to last year's circ at the beginning of the year, but they iterate or accumulate over time during the year. So for each checkout, that number gets added to it. But it only counts checkouts, does not count renewals. So if you're interested in that, renewals aren't counted as part of year-to-date circ. So for each one of these, you just click on the area and it will break down the code. And then the record count comes right after it, and all those other columns appear after. So for eye level, we have 432 adults, 259 kids, and you can pull this frame over to kind of read these a little bit better. And then 50 young adults. Item logs should all be Mitchell Street, but this breaks it down really nicely by number of items per location code within Mitchell Street. Region should all be Milwaukee. The status. So 22 of these are on hold shelf at the time, that this report was run. 664 were checked shelves, 6 in process, and 55 in transit. Some of this information is going to be more useful than others, but that's a basic field statistics report for Sierra Statistics. Let's go back before we look at some of these output and just look at the bib report that we ran. Okay, so This is a good breakdown by language. So it's breaking down all these bib fixed field level information. We have language, bibloc, level, mat type, so on and so forth. So you can take a look real quickly, and it indicates there's 157 bibliographic titles associated with Spanish, 540 with English. The biblocs are all Mitchell Street, as you would imagine, but there's also some with multi. I mean, there's an additional, if we split these out, you would have a different report. We did that split multi, you would see other libraries' location codes as part of that. That's why the numbers get bigger. Okay, and if you wanted to take a quick look at your mat type split, you would have books are 525, DVDs 59. Just lists everything out here for you so you can take a look and just get a quick glance about how everything is split up between these items. Yeah, Aaron. Sure.
There are a couple of fields that, is it possible to get into, to identify the item that has no linguistic content?
Oh,
The
that's,
ones where it's like to
that's,
see if it's an error or something.
yeah, question was could you get into those? So for example, you see we have NA where the meaning is blank, and you probably should have some indication about what the language content is for that item. The easiest way to do this is you really can't get into that's a great question. You can't get into the item from this report. What you have to do is go back into create list, sort on that language field. In this case, you're gonna have to pull it into, like you're gonna have to run another list, searching for bibs, and then sort on language.
Or does this include CDs or just books? Because no language
Yeah.
jazz,
It could be,
jazz CDs
Right.
are usually no language.
right. But you could, just to make sure, you could do that type of list. What you'd have to do, because our item is stored record type is item, you would have to run just another list for bib, stored record of bibs. And then just, actually you wouldn't have to do that. All you'd have to do is sort on the bib level information. Let's just take a look at that. Let's go back to create list, because I think that's an important thing to work with. So we're looking at 128. If we sort, we should be able to sort on language. Yeah, right here. Sort on it and just, we can find very quickly whether or not this is an issue. Language, what am I looking at? Oh, it's English, okay. So I'm guessing it's probably at the bottom. That might be it. Language, no linguistic content. That might be why it turned up. Yeah. Let me just take a look at the other one here. This looks like it might be Spanish, yeah. Okay, but you can see how it would be done. You can find those by going back and sorting. Okay, so I'm going to go back to our result file here. Let's just take a look at the Mitchell Street item report again. Okay, so you can do a lot of things actually within the report. Unlike create lists, you can actually rearrange these columns that you see here. You can just pull and drag them all over the place if you wanted to do that. You can also hide and unhide these. So if you wanted to, say you wanted to print something out and you didn't want all this stuff about overdue and I use 3 and all that stuff, you would just select a column, a row or cell within that column and click on hide column, and it will just hide everything for you. The only problem is you can't really sort anything until you get into Excel. So it will not output, we'll find out for sure, You cannot output anything or sort anything until you get it into Excel. Let's take a look at that. To do that, if you wanted to remove all these changes, you would just do an unformat. And then it would just reset everything. This is basically your reset button. If you want to export any of this information, let's just take another report here that's a little bit more useful. You would just click on the export button up top here. And the way you have it set up is it's going to look for the Excel program on your local workstation and try to open it up there. Don't worry about this. This is just because it's using the XLS. As long as you hit yes, you can click through this and it will give you this report all set up for you already. And then you can do all your Excel magic within this area, do all your sorting or whatever it is. If you want to run pivot tables off of this information as well, you could do that very easily. So that's just really the main way of exporting. You can also, if we go back, you can also export using Word. You can print to a file. If you're really interested, you could do comma separated values, which is CSV, or tab text. So those are really the main ways in which you would export the information. Before I forget, there are some, not sure if I can bring it up here. There are specific reports directly related to order records. And you can see they're kind of grayed out here, but there's area here for budget planning and collection development. Let's see if I can find an order record report. Yeah, that's great. Good idea. Anything with okay. Let's find something that's really not enormous. Let's see. Which one? Uncle orders? Okay. Yeah, do you think Uncle orders would be fine? Okay. Okay. So you have your typical report here with all these acquisition level fixed field information, order log, code one, all these are different fixed fields that are part of the order records. However, now that we're dealing with order records, you have two different types of reports. In addition, I don't really know too much about them, but I will show you that there is a document that I can share with you online here that you can look at for further information. Budget planning. So you can run a report. It looks like you can run a report to display future costs, project future costs based on some formulas here. There's a lot of information about this that I don't quite get, but it's all based on an algorithm for projected future cost. And you can choose your date range here. So that would be budget planning. And then collection development. This isn't so much budgeting. I think it's a similar report, but it's probably looking at how much these copies cost per. I'm not sure if I'm reading this correctly, but these are two reports that are specific to order records that obviously I don't know anything about. But there's documentation. We'll look at it later, but it's on the Create Lists website. It's www.mcfliss.org/createlists. And we'll take a look at that in a second. Okay. Are there any questions about statistics? We haven't had too much problems with statistics, but in the past, on occasion you'll get an error message stating it cannot connect to the database. I see it more with the fines paid report these days. But if you do get that message, it used to appear all the time. It was just like really annoying. But if you do get that message, you can just exit out of Sierra, reconnect, and it will work just fine. So it's just, for some reason, it loses a connection or a link to that MySQL database where all this stuff used to be stored. I think this is all in Postgres now, so we don't have that issue, but fines paid is still in its own little universe, own little bubble, so we have to still worry about that part of it. Okay, so I'm going to open up a website here. And the website is MCFLIS, www.mcflis.org/createlists. So we have a bunch of stuff here. The create list manual is really good. It's a PDF version with a ton of screenshots. And they've all been updated recently to include Sierra information within them. So if you're looking for, oh, how did I do that type of thing, it really breaks it down step by step as to how to create a review file. I'm not going to open it up now because it would take a long time. We also have the slides. I'll update these for our current session. The Playing with Matches guide is something that Robert Jackson put together, and it's really good. I'll just bring it up here briefly. But this has all the information we talked about today, and he gives really good examples for using regular expressions within Sierra. In particular, a discussion about, this is what we were talking about before, how Millennium stores mark variable field data, and where you have that start of the field position you see in that illustration there, where that caret needs to start in order for it to be able to pull in mark tag level data. And he does have some information about leader fields that you can use as well. But a lot of good examples. Some of them, as you know, I've stolen from him. But it's a really good document to just kind of keep around on your desk if you wanted to use regular expressions for your day-to-day stuff. I do that myself. I have to refer to that every once in a while. Okay, and then we have the file assignments and some examples here. I'm trying to remember where that statistics stuff is. I think it's part of this PDF manual. If you don't find it, let me know, particularly when it comes to orders, order record reports. Okay. Well, let me just check online really quick, make sure. Let's see, I'm going to mute myself. Okay. I think that's what our problem was before. See if there's any questions. I didn't think there was before. Okay. Okay. So if there are no other questions, I think we're done for today. Thank you very much for attending. I appreciate your time. And if you have any questions at all regarding create list or statistics, just give me a holler. We'll have this session up on the YouTube channel probably within this afternoon or something like that. So if you need to point at other people there, feel free. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
You bet. No problem.